This is Casey Fredrickson, the former Charles City man now charged in the 2005 murder of Evelyn Miller. It's a case that shows no matter how cold the case may seem, there's always hope of a break. On September 27th, Iowa authorities announced charges against Fredrickson 7 years after the murder. It's cases like this that give those at the center of other cold cases hope that maybe someday their cases will be solved too. KIMT News 3's Matt Bradley is in Studio 3 with how that can happen in a Covering Crime special report.
Thanks, Sarah. Names like Jody Husentroop, Johnny Gosh, Jacob Wetterling, they're known nationwide as frustrating cold cases. Only a couple people in the world know what really happened, and so far, they're not coming forward. 2 local cold cases are marking somber anniversaries in the coming weeks. 14 years ago tomorrow, on November 9th, 1998, 81-year-old Mildred Clemenson was found beaten to death in her mobile home near Kensett. That case remains unsolved, and they're looking at KIMT News footage from that time. David Gentz was Worth County Sheriff at the time. He investigated that murder and one near Northwood 11 months prior. In that case, 48-year-old Lowell Stumo was found shot to death. I spoke with Gentz recently, and he tells me not a day goes by that he doesn't think of the victims and the suspects and the circumstances that leave those cases unsolved. That frustration is felt even more strongly by those families living with a cold case. In the photo overlooking his grandparents' bar and restaurant, Mother's Place in Latimer, Jared Parks will always show this look of intensity. It's the same look he gives in the same photo overlooking his parents' home in West Des Moines.
He's a sweetheart.
He's funny. He's a funny kid. He's witty.
Tammy and Chad Parks are living a double nightmare, the death of their son combined with not knowing what happened to him.
I mean, I believe he was likely beaten to death. I don't know why, though. I don't know.
The last day Jared Parks' parents heard from him was May 10th, 2009. He was at a friend's apartment. He left, said he'd be right back, but hours later fell or was thrown from a bridge onto the interstate below. At first, the circumstances made it look like suicide.
You know, because it was near a bridge, you know, automatically they think he jumped.
But investigators soon classified Jared's death as suspicious. Tammy and Chad say they know he was murdered.
You know, I believe he was beat up. I think it was at least 2 people, and he was a big boy.
And so far, that's about all they have to go on. They've never found out what happened between the last text to his mother at 9:30 and when his body was run over by several semis on the interstate after midnight. Hundreds of cars pass by this spot every day, with most of the drivers probably having no idea what happened here nearly 4 years ago. Of course, 4 years is how the calendar keeps track of the time that's passed. For the family, no 2 days seem like the same.
Sometimes, you know, feels like day before, day after, and sometimes feels like it's been 10 years.
In all that time, Tammy has worked especially hard to make sure her son's case doesn't go cold. She keeps in close contact with the investigator assigned to the case.
I won't ever consider it cold. I mean, I'll work on it every day. I mean, I'm very involved.
I think it's important for the family to do, you know, to continue contacting the police to find out what's going on.
And Pat Farrell would know.
A little nudge here and there gets them working again on that case, perhaps.
Ever since retiring as Rochester Police Chief in 1998, he's put his 38 years of law enforcement experience to use through Project Alert and Team Adam, 2 programs designed to give retired law enforcement members a new mission, helping local agencies with missing children and unsolved cases. He says though some may seem hopeless, there are no unsolvable cases.
But there certainly are cases that are extremely difficult, and you have to rely on chance sometimes to help move that along, or just pure luck.
Farrell has recently been helping in the investigation of 2 girls missing from Evansdale, Iowa since mid-July. He says investigators are working hard to keep that case from going cold.
They're still active involved, and the FBI is still actively involved, but it's been a real puzzler because they just disappeared completely.
Farrell says manpower is the one biggest problem for agencies trying to uncover new leads in older unsolved cases. They just don't have the resources to tackle the new investigations and keep looking for clues in the old.
It takes a lot of time and a seemingly unproductive time to sit down and go through a lot of written reports and stuff.
In his experience, the thing that will solve a cold case is often new technology, like DNA sampling or age progression photos. More likely, the break in the case comes from somebody's jogged memory.
Conscious whatever brings it out, and then they bring it forward.
Someone's going to say something. Somebody's going to brag about it or something.
And that's what the Parks are hoping will eventually happen, as they continue to make sure every lead, clue, and rumor is checked out. They know they'll never get Jared back, but by finding out what happened to him, half of this double nightmare will finally be over.
I just have no idea how this feels. It's horrible.
And of course, one of the most famous cold cases in our area comes from right here at KIMT. In 1995, Daybreak anchor Jody Huisentruit disappeared. Over the years, several suspects fell under scrutiny. In the late 90s, attention turned to a man named Tony DeJuan Jackson. He's a convicted rapist, now in prison in Minnesota, but he lived in Mason City at the time of Jody's disappearance. You may remember hearing about him. A fellow inmate said Jackson came up with a rap song about Jody being buried in Tiffin, Iowa. Well, Jackson maintains his innocence, but we reached out to him about a year ago, around the time of the disappearance, to see if his story changed. It did not, but he did tell us what he remembers of being questioned in a closely watched cold case.
The Mason City Police Department never really approached me in an aggressive manner. Essentially, as you would say, we got a major suspect, we're going to lay on him and we're going to approach him, we're going to make an effort to come see him and try to talk to him type thing. It was never like that. And even all these years, it never has been like that.
And I spoke with a Mason City Police Department investigator to see if Jackson's story could be confirmed. They tell me they did visit with him when his name came up back in the late 90s, but could find nothing to tie him to the Huisentruit disappearance. Sarah?
All right, thanks, Matt. Very interesting. Some in law enforcement are trying to address the issue of manpower in cold case investigations. In Minnesota, the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension has 16 agents helping local agencies when they can. They also work on current cases. In Iowa, the Division of Criminal Investigation offers similar services to local agencies. The state used to have a cold case task force, but the federal funding for that ran out several years ago.